Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into, well, a really fascinating link between political talk and what's happening on the ground economically.
Exactly. We're looking at how speculation, just the talk about a potential mansion tax here in the UK, is already having real measurable effects on the London property market, prime London specifically.
Right. Our mission, really, is to connect those dots for you. How do these future policy fears, these tax proposals, turn into market shifts right now?
We've got the sources showing just that. Political chatter directly impacting house prices, rental demand. It's all connected.
And the key figure here, it's pretty stark. Prime London house prices. They slumped by 4% in the year to October.
And that's actually the steepest drop we've seen since, what, February 2021?
Yeah. And analysts are saying it's down to prolonged tax speculation. It's the uncertainty itself kind of pushing values down.
And it stems from the shadow chancellor, Rachel Reeves, considering this new levy. Basically, a 1% tax on the part of a property's value over £2 million.
Okay, so let's make that real. If you own a, say, $3 million home.
You'd be looking at an extra £10,000 tax bill every year.
Wow. And that's not a small number of homes we're talking about. It could potentially hit over 150,000 properties across England and Wales.
It's significant. We should probably mention quickly, there's an alternative idea floating around too, something about doubling the top council tax bands.
Right, but it feels like the market buzz, the real anxiety, is around that main mansion tax proposal for now.
Exactly. The market's reacting to the fear, the idea of change, not an actual law on the books.
Okay, so let's unpack the history a bit. This isn't the first time we've seen this, right? What does the past tell us about markets reacting to just political fear, especially in London?
Well, this specific fear has a track record. You look at prime central London, mansion values there. They've already dropped about 8% since 2012.
2012? Why then?
That's not random. That was when the Liberal Democrats first floated a very similar £2 million property tax idea.
Ah, okay. So that original proposal, even though it never actually happened.
It cast a long shadow. The market never quite shook off that threat, that uncertainty.
So you're saying a proposal that failed over a decade ago still impacts prices today through fear?
It created this sustained climate of uncertainty. But here's where it gets really interesting, the knock-on effects. That fear, that depressed demand at the top end, it wasn't just passive.
What do you mean?
It actually seems to have pushed the government towards policy change. Remember George Osborne, the chancellor back then? In December 2014, reacting partly to that stagnant high-end market.
He massively hiked the stamp duty for high-value properties.
Exactly. So the fear of the mansion tax arguably led directly to a permanent and quite hefty stamp duty increase.
That's quite a domino effect.
Yeah.
Speculation forces actual policy change, which then further impacts the market.
Precisely. And you could argue the market hasn't fully bounced back from that whole sequence.
Okay, so if the sales market at the top end is sluggish, people are maybe wary of buying these big assets. Where's that money, that demand going? People still need somewhere to live.
Yeah, and this is what we're seeing now. It's shifting. All this protracted budget uncertainty, it seems to have caused around a 10% spike in demand to rent high-end properties in London.
A 10% jump in rental demand.
Yep. And consequently, average rents in prime central London are up 1.9% year on year. That's the biggest rise since, I think, August 2022, actually.
That's significant.
Yeah.
Is that purely political uncertainty, though, or are things like higher interest rates maybe playing a part too, making buying less attractive?
Well, interest rates are definitely part of the bigger picture, no doubt, but the analysis we're seeing really points strongly towards the political climate, the tax fears.
So what's the core driver then?
It seems to be about liquidity preference. When the outlook feels uncertain, politically and economically, people, especially high net worth individuals, tend to prioritize, liquidity and cash in the bank.
Meaning they prefer renting?
Renting offers short-term flexibility. Buying involves big transaction costs, like that stamp duty we mentioned, plus the risk of potentially hefty annual taxes down the line. Renting avoids that long-term commitment and potential financial hit. It keeps capital liquid.
Right. So pulling this all together, what's the big takeaway here? We're seeing a clear pattern, aren't we?
Yeah, it seems pretty clear. The mere discussion of certain taxes, before they even get close to becoming law, can dramatically shift behavior. It reroutes capital from sales to rentals.
It fundamentally changes investment decisions, living decisions.
Absolutely. The market reaction shows these kinds of proposed wealth taxes, they don't just exist in spreadsheets about potential revenue. They actively change behavior, favoring, short-term flexibility over long-term ownership in these expensive areas. People are hedging against future policy risk.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on. If just the threat of a tax like this can contribute to an 8% market dip over a decade, and even indirectly force changes like the stamp duty hike,
Right.
what does that imply?
Does it mean the only way to get stability back in this part of the market is to completely take this kind of tax debate off the table?
Or is this market slump, this shift to rentals, just an unavoidable side effect, maybe even a necessary cost if you're pursuing policies aimed at wealth redistribution?
Yeah. Is it the cost of the policy attempt itself? Something for you to consider.